5 o'clock. This is the July 11th, 2023 meeting of the Harwich Bylaw Charter Review Committee. Call the meeting to order. Is there any public comment?
Are we on tape?
Yes,
Yep.
behave.
Okay, so no public comment. We will proceed to reorganization, and I would like to kick that off by nominating Linda Sabula to take the chair.
I second.
Is there any discussion?
Do I get a vote?
Yes, you get a vote. So where are we outnumber you?
That's what I'm afraid of.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay?
Aye. Is that a 3-0?
Yes,
Okay, the next up is the clerk, is the vice chair. I'd like to nominate Anita Doucette for vice chair.
Wow.
Is there a second?
second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And Deb has very kindly offered to continue as clerk,
Oh, excellent.
so I would like to nominate her to continue as clerk.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
It is a vote. You want to take it from here, Linda? No.
Sure. All right, approval of the minutes of June 13th. They were sent out. Are there any corrections?
I wasn't here for that meeting.
Everything looks fine to me.
Okay.
I've moved the approval of the minutes of June 13th.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And an abstention.
Mhm.
Okay, we're
This
on to
is-
new
This
business.
is fun. I like this.
Yes.
All right, new business. The golf committee joint meeting, we had thought to have it on tonight, but due to some vacations, et cetera, it has been moved to August 8th. So we're going to talk to the golf committee about what they think ought to be happening in the charter, et cetera.
Yeah, I talked to Martha. I had called her several weeks ago and only got an answer back about 3 or 4 days ago. She was in Paris for 2 weeks.
Oh, how
That certainly
nice.
trumps this.
I guess we can consider that a valid excuse. Anyhow, we had a nice chat, and they do want to sit down with us, but she asked if we could meet our next meeting to give her committee a chance to discuss things in the meantime. So that seemed
Excellent.
like a good thing.
That sounds good, so we got that. New business number B was the discussion regarding a possible July 24th, 2023 joint meeting with the Select Board. They had received our letter from last time, and they put us on the agenda fairly quickly, but we had no notice. Consequently, they moved it to July 10th, which was yesterday, and some of us couldn't make it, so I believe it's being moved to the July 24th.
We have not had any official notice, have we, Linda?
No, no official notice. And we've had no official, since they have not discussed it yet, there has been no official notice period, so they can't even make a comment. I'm assuming that we should post a meeting for the 24th?
We'll post a joint meeting for that, yeah.
Just to make sure, because I'm not sure if it's going to be labeled as their discussion, if it's going to be a joint meeting with us, the two committees, don't know. I don't know how it's going to be put on the agenda.
No idea.
No clue. All right, moving right along. We've got, any discussion of next steps? Anything anybody would like on the next agenda?
Well, we know we have golf,
We have golf.
and by that time, we should have some food for discussion regarding the potential July 24th meeting,
Mhm.
and hopefully a new member.
And hopefully a new member. Are there other committees, Sandy, that were in the pipeline for us to talk to? We've had the Finance Committee in, we've had
Capital outlay,
capital outlay,
um,
we have had FinCom, we're gonna have golf,
we had the town clerk.
yep, the town
Um,
clerk.
Might be interesting at some point to talk to the finance director, but she's brand new, so I wouldn't be. We do, oh no, we don't have, do we have a finance director?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
as of today, we do.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah, probably need some time to get settled. Good question. Other committees, or do we just want to start to run the list of the things we know have a bit of concern and start working on some language, perhaps?
I think that's a good idea. Start coming up with the ideas for charter words.
Go through and,
Just start looking at sections and start going through section by section and saying this, that, and the other thing.
and review our past meetings, even our past tapes, just to refresh, because there were a number of things that, well, Jeff brought up during our meeting with him that had sort of gotten lost along the way until you go back and start looking at previous meetings, and then you go, oh yeah, we need to talk about that. Maybe we need to talk about the personnel bylaw. See if we can get a copy of that between now and then.
Town clerk should have a copy of that.
The town clerk?
We could
Yes.
ask. If not, then I think we go for it.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a question from the audience. If there is an RFP for a consultant, and if it goes in that direction, I fear that may take, maybe it won't because it's being talked about now, but it could possibly take a few months. I was wondering if this committee should like lay out the charter, have a meeting where, I mean, I know for some people on the committee, I mean, this is like looking at the back of your hand, but, you know, not for everybody and not for everybody in the town. So I just didn't know as one approach if it would be to lay it out by sections and decide if this committee was gonna look at it piecemeal, or, you know, or should we wait for the consultant's advice, or should we do both? Pick one section that you know is gonna come up and, you know, just start, you know me, I'm a visual person.
Yep,
If I
yep.
don't have something on a chart, then, you know, but,
I think it's gonna kind of be a yes,
yeah,
because to really do this properly, we have talked about having a couple of public hearings.
right,
And inviting the public to tell us, are there places in the charter that we think we should be looking at or make suggested changes, et cetera, to take that information from the public. So there is going to be that level of public
Right.
input. I think that we should specifically ask the town committees, the ones that are most impacted by the charter, is there stuff in there that really impacts you and you think that it needs to be reworded, changed, whatever, clarified, and in connection, and then the consultant can help us to, because I'm not sure we want to be just tell the consultant, here, go come up with something.
yeah.
I
No,
think we want to say, these three areas, what would be better ways to do this? What are your ideas? We know we want to change this section to this, or that would be the best proposal. So I think it's a yes answer.
Right,
maybe we should divvy up the charter, each person take a fifth of it and go through it and be prepared to come back to maybe the September meeting and talk about findings, maybe even reach out to people along the way. I mean, there's no harm in that. Or I understand working sessions are very popular these days. We could have a couple of those.
yeah.
That might be helpful too.
Yeah.
The reason I bring it up is, you know, I've certainly looked at the charter, I've looked at the bylaws, but, you know, not intensively. But, so for somebody kind of giving the first, as they say, deep dive, you know, to the thing, like I'm gonna be conscious of looking at the charter and then looking at what sections are affected in the bylaws by that, to first start to join them so that we're not fixing one thing and then going after, and that's why I think it's so important that we have the personnel bylaws at the same time, so that whatever section you're looking at, you got the whole pie.
So if we each took a fifth of it
Yeah, I like
and
that.
made it the job to do as much as we have time for
Right.
between now and September,
Yeah,
we could, could assign them anytime. You could assign them and
Sure.
send out an email and say, I'd like you to be responsible for this, and,
Right.
look at the bylaws to see how they flow into each other, because that's important. And if something is totally silent, of course, then you go to state law.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't think we have to go quite that far at this point. We know that they're okay with state law because the Attorney General's already said so.
But any changes that we would want to propose. And and I think we're looking at it from the perspective of, regardless of what was going on in the past is over, done, can't change it. But how do we want our community to be guided? And so I think that that's really where we're going and where we hope to end up, is how do we want to govern ourselves as opposed to whatever was happening when,
Well,
somebody
sometimes-
came over on the Mayflower.
Sometimes the past is good because sometimes it's important to understand why something is good.
I think that's true.
And to just totally discard it. I mean, I've heard one selectman say that, said selectman doesn't care about history. Well, sometimes history is instructive, and there are and have been good reasons for a lot of things that happen. There have been bad reasons for why a lot of things have happened.
And I think that's true. I think this was written this way, whatever it was, because this was our understanding of how it was going to work. Times have changed.
Yep.
Maybe people forgot, so maybe it's time to take that section and rewrite it so that it's really crystal clear what was intended. And so I think all of that is,
Yep. And then in that way, we'd be ready for a consultant if we are availed of the services of said consultant to say, okay, this is what we found. What's the best way to go about getting where we want to be? Because I think that's really the best purpose of a consultant.
yeah, to actually go out to have that person be the person who says, are there other ways or better ways to write this?
Are there new ways?
Are there new ways to write this? Is there something that we're not thinking about that some other town has already gone through? And bring that information, and say, yeah, this really makes sense.
Yeah, that's to me, that's the way to go. My sense of where the selectmen seem to be heading, at least one or two of them, is that they want to hire a consultant to write a new charter. I don't think that's what we want as a town.
I don't think we need I'm not sure that's what we want either. I think we need some corrections and clarifications
Guidance.
to guide us as we move forward. I think also, if they want to write a new charter, everything that we've read, as Sandy has pointed out, says that's a charter commission, which is elected and blah, 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 blah. So, and the charter does give us, the bylaw charter review committee is supposed to be reviewing the charter and making suggestions, which has been done and
Largely ignored.
largely ignored.
I just wanted to add, if I could, that I don't believe the residents voted on writing a new charter in October of '22. That wasn't the language at the time. So, I mean, I wouldn't even really discuss it. It doesn't mean that it's crazy or it should never be done. It's just not what was discussed in the article or that night. It's beyond the scope of it, in my mind. With some others.
But if we don't push, if the community doesn't push back,
Right.
then the nibbling is going to occur, and what may have been intended becomes left behind
Right.
as the nibbling takes place. If the community doesn't say, that's not what the article was about.
So are you looking at the whole charter or just like standing committees? Like I'm looking, I've got the charter in front of me.
So divvy it up into 5 pieces, or as close to 5 pieces, or 2 sections each, or 1 section each.
And is there something in there that
That's-
over the course of time has raised issues? Are there sections that have raised issues, like the section of should a new hire be a separate article or not? And so that's something I think we do need to address to clarify what it is we think should happen. But I think that it's a reading of the whole charter. Are there other places that have been problematic or have caused, we gotta talk to the lawyer and get an opinion? At what point do we want the charter to not need all those opinions. Anita, you look like you're thinking about that.
Yeah. I guess splitting it up into 5 different pieces would be fine, but, and do you want to make sure that our exercise would be to make sure that the portion that you're going to decide that we take is matching to the bylaws, is matching to to make sure that they match, that one is agreeable to the other? The reason I mention standing committees is because you've got, like, we've done the finance committee, which isn't a standing committee, but you've got this, like, the Board of Assessors, and I'm going to date myself. When Winnie Ovasca was chairman of this board years ago, we went through every single solitary standing committee and had every single committee come in and talk to us about what they felt their changes needed to be. We never thought, I believe, at that point in time to check the bylaws. Do you see where I'm going? So if you're going to divvy up different standing committees as well. So you get this standing committee, you get this standing committee, and make sure that, so not just one.
Divvy up the sections, but with the standing committees, divvy those up inside of that section. Kind of makes sense. So that
Yeah.
if one person doesn't get hit
That's what I'm
with all
thinking.
of it.
Okay.
That's
Makes
what I'm
sense.
thinking. Does that make sense to you guys?
Any way that works makes sense.
Okay.
Really,
We don't want
they-
to put an undue burden on any one person, and
Right.
we can certainly, if Linda wants to try to put together some kind of a grid for that between now and the next meeting, we can,
And part of that is should all those standing committees remain in the charter? Because that's
Well,
a different question.
one thing this board is talking about is consolidation. Not sure exactly what that means, but
Well, the standing committees would be like Board of Assessors, Conservation.
I haven't memorized them, so.
Okay, I'm just looking at a
but-
few that
but-
are in front of me, that's all.
But that would be part of that review, is not just to say, because it's in the charter, it should stay in the charter.
Okay.
It's, does
So if
it
it-
belong in the charter now? Not necessarily everything that was put in there, it's not so much, is it in there and does it look okay?
does it need to be?
Does
there?
it need to be there? Like times, all this time has gone by, does it need to be in there? I mean, there was this long conversation that the select board had their working group on objectives and priorities and stuff. And one of the questions came up was that the select board's interview committee is not in the charter.
Doesn't need to be.
And that was because it's not in the charter, is it really legitimate to have? But the discussion that happened among the board members, it was the town administrator that brought this up, is the interview committee interviews. They're authorized to interview and make a suggestion. They're advisory. Whatever they suggest comes to the full board according to the charter, and the full board votes on membership of various committees, boards, and commissions. And it was a good conversation, because it did go through that, well, it's not in there, should it be in there, why does it not need to be in there? So it was really a good discussion that they had on, it
Because the
doesn't
Board
need
of-
to be in there.
The Board of Selectmen can create subcommittees and advisory.
All over the place,
All
they
over
have
the
the
place.
right. We have some committees that we have to have, Mass General Law, et cetera. But they can create other committees, and it has been done over the years. A committee is created to do such and thus. You're on one of them,
Many of them.
yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but, and then when their mission is
Oh,
done, the
yeah,
committee is
yeah.
dissolved.
I was on one that the mission actually ended. That was one of the early wastewater ones.
Early wastewater
Yeah.
ones. The mission ends, the committee ends, and that's perfectly legitimate. They don't all need to be in the charter. We'd run out of space.
Well, this is a good topic for our next agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
The only thing, I'll state the obvious, is the sections that have to do with, like, town meeting, the warrant, things like that. the assigner's gonna have to put some thought, you know what I mean? They're so intertwined, I don't have to say anymore, but you know what I mean? You could have a section that's all about town meeting, but if you don't at the same time keep an eye on, for instance, what the responsibilities of the TA might be, or the select board in relation to that, then, you know.
Do we think that part of this mission is to say, okay, I'm gonna change this section of the charter to read this? That it's part of our mission is to now go look through all the bylaws, all 800 million pages of the bylaws, to make sure that there isn't some bylaw 452, section 7, that also has to be changed? Or are we looking at this as a charter discussion? And then like phase 2 would be,
Our title is bylaw charter
Right
review,
here.
so, and I think the bylaws are fairly well organized so that you can get to where you need to be without a whole lot of, plus they're totally searchable, so you can find.
You know,
I guess what I'm getting at more is phase 1 is the charter, phase 2 is charter into the bylaws type thing.
you know,
And that's a question I'm asking.
Good question for the next meeting, I think,
Yeah.
because we're probably getting a little out of our discussion here, but
can I just answer one thing? Yes? No?
Okay.
I personally, I thought that they went hand in hand. I spent a lot of more time last year actually on bylaws than charter. But, so that's how I was approaching it, that like if you get this section, then I didn't find the bylaws as overwhelming as I thought they were until I had to spend a lot of time last year with them.
On the bylaws?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
overwhelming
I-
at times.
actually think that it should be considered at the same time, because there's no point in making a judgment on what's in the charter if you're working blind as to what's in the bylaws. I think they're
That's why I'm asking the question is,
two halves of the whole,
you know, but, you
and the
know,
personnel bylaw too.
the personnel bylaw, which,
And last year, you folks worked hard to get that exception, to get zoning completely out of, zoning bylaws completely out of the picture. So bylaws were certainly discussed as part of the project.
Well, zoning,
the whole
zoning is completely a whole other
Right.
world.
it is, and that, yeah, so
Under-
that, I know that in the,
bylaws.
when the motion was made, it excluded the zoning bylaws, because that is a whole, to get into that would just be, that's a whole.
And maybe that
Whoop-de-doo.
should be a clarification in the charter when we get to it, as far as this committee's concerned. General bylaws.
Versus zoning bylaws. That's a good point. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else, ladies?
Just in closing, I would like to say thank you, Linda, for taking the chair, and Anita also. I'm looking forward to being here.
And I appreciate all of the work that you've done moving this committee through stuff. And hopefully I'll be able to
Oh, you
inch it
will.
along again.
You'll be fine. Okay. Thank you for running a very good first meeting.
All right,
Now that the Mutual Admiration Society is concluded, I move we adjourn.
all right. Sandy adjourn. Anita, yes?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
I love those kind of votes.
You
Turn us
can
off.
turn us off. Yeah.
Oh, the power. Are we off?
I don't know, it said follow panel.